Welcome to Leaders of Africa Presents, with a live conversation about making education in Cameroon the best in the world. My name is Dr. Etta Mercy Aki, and I am the Vice Dean for Studies and Student Affairs in the Faculty of Education at the University of Buea. And I am your host for today's event. Today, we are also joined by student leaders. We have James Shuli from the University of Bamenda. He is a student leader in the Department of Educational Leadership. And we also have Kwanda Valentine from the University of Bamenda. He's equally a student leader in the Faculty of Education. As we go on, we will be joined by other panelists. We're expecting Stella, and we're also expecting Blending. However, our conversation today is about making higher education the best in the world. And I promise that we are going to have a very great conversation. We want to hear from the student leaders what they think, because the tendency is always to create a higher education in the absence of the consumers themselves, or those who are at the center of the learning process, which are the students. These students with us today have gone through the experiences of pre-admission till date when they are participating in higher education. And we want to get their experiences. And we will call on you equally to share your experiences on the chat box and interact with us as much as possible. I want to start by talking about your experiences applying to the university. For some of you, that was some time back, long time ago. But what kinds of directives, what kinds of support did you receive when you were applying to the university? Shuli, do you want to take that one there?
Yes, Doctor. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I am very grateful being a member of Leaders of Africa. As a student, I already gained admission into the university, and I encountered a lot of difficulties, and I also noticed a lot of loopholes as long as admission into various universities, especially or in particularly the University of Bamenda. During my period of admission, I had no orientation from the administration. I had no orientation, and concerning guidance and counseling, students who are coming in, it was really poor. It was really poor, and up to date, I think getting an office in this university for guidance is very, very difficult, and which is very, very important in the university milieu. Thank you very much, Doctor.
All right, thank you, Shuli. Shuli tells us that orientation was his main challenge, being oriented. Valentine, what about you? How was it for you? What support, what directives did you receive before admissions into the university?
Thank you very much, Doctor, for the opportunity given to me to express my experience during my admission into the University of Bamenda. It was really a nightmare. I came in during the time that things were not really normal, especially during the crisis. And when I came in, I was really interested to get admission into the Faculty of Education. By then, there was no Faculty of Education, but there was no education. Then I decided to begin with the Faculty of Art before the coming of Faculty of Education. So when I came in, I met people, students, I don't know if all of them were students, by the roadside. And one of their most reasons was to raise money, which they wanted to extort from me. The only thing they could direct me was getting the online admission and doing everything at their little corner. But when I get into the university, I met 2 or 3 people asking how I could get the admission. Nobody could help me. So I really suffered. I think I left my village to Bambili here, where the university is situated. I have to spend 3 nights just to be able to have admission. The first thing I encountered was to do the online registration, which I paid one guy who told me I have to pay a huge amount of money, which I did. And he mingled with it and told me it was okay. On going again, I decided to go and find out in the Office of Admission and Record Office of the University of Bamenda. When I went there, they told me my name is not there. I've not even applied. But I was showing them something on a piece of paper that indicated that I have applied. But those things were just a scam. The guy just did everything. It's like he took that of someone else, edited and gave me and took the money. So if one of the things I thought I could create, which I struggled on my own as a student leader to no avail, was to create an educational center or an admission-oriented center. Because when I asked of guidance and counseling, they said they are there, but to meet them is one of the problems. You know, when you are not informed, you are totally deformed. So it was very difficult for me to have the right thing. And I thank God I was able to reach the admission office. And even during my leadership on campus, I struggled to help a good number of students, which up to now, some of them are still frustrated because of my study. I will not be there all the time, but some of them up to now are still totally suffering because of this. And I don't know how we can try to solve this issue. It has really been a serious problem. Good number of students, some come in, they want to apply for a particular department because the person who is to help them by the roadside does not have much idea or any idea about that department. They try to fish in any department and put your name there and get their money. And at the end, when you are realizing it, it is really at the level more often, sometimes admission is off or it has ended. And you just have to wait for the next academic to come and redo again, or you have to carry up on the schooling academic in that department. And that is really frustrating on our side as students. Thank you.
Well, I think that's very interesting. You know, our experiences make up our university life because it is the experiences that will determine how our outcomes, whether they will be successful or not. And one of the things that we are hearing strongly is that the orientation services are limiting. And if these foundations are not there, it's troubling what the students are going to end up with. So very interesting experiences that we've had there. Now, one of the things I heard Valentine mention was talking about scammers, scammers who are in the university extorting money from other students and maybe giving them the wrong orientation towards the different questions that they have. I just want to ask for the Valentine, is the university aware of these different people who are inhabiting their campuses and sharing the wrong information which they do not subscribe to? Are university authorities aware of this?
The university is not aware, but there are people by the roadside who are there to maybe to make money, and they do everything to make sure that they make money when they see you coming. And the university is there. It is very difficult for them to bash into people's businesses by the roadside, maybe to begin to find out what they are doing. And maybe it takes a lot because you need to employ somebody who will be there throughout for a day, a week, a month to try to monitor what they are doing. But it doesn't exist. So when you meet them by the roadside, some really are helping. But when you meet some who are really in need of money, and majority of them, when they notice that what you want to know will take their time, what they tell you is, it is either you accept I do what I do, you are just new here, or you go your way. And then since you are frustrated, even when you get to the campus, the campus police too, they are not hospital. I mean, the way they handle you is not welcoming enough. They just tell you, they will begin to harass you in a way that you will not feel like. I, for instance, I stood at the gate to question one campus police where if he could help me and point or direct me to the administrative affairs where I could get in contact with the admission and record office. The first thing he told me was my position was not where students stand, whereas I was in front of him. So I had to go a good distance away from him, which was already intimidating enough to maybe to make me, if I was not bold enough to insist what I'm in need of, it would have been a uh, serious problem, even though he was rather insulting me when we are coming to disturb them. He doesn't want to get up from his place. The work is strenuous. We are increasing the stress. So I just have to plead. I remember I told him that if he can take me like a son who is frustrated and help me out, I will be grateful and I will never forget. And that moves him, and he took me to the office, and I was grateful enough for that.
So apart from the institution, apart from your universities, the support that the campuses can give, were there any other persons that were influential in in the admission process? For instance, helped you to choose the kinds of programs that you wanted to study, or told you something about the university, even just for directions that you think that was very worthwhile for you and its support in the process of admission for you? James, did you have these kinds of influential persons in your life? Friends, peers, parents?
Thank you very much, Doctor. I had one before coming into the University of Bamenda. My passion was to do leadership, and when I came, I was very, very fortunate that I went straight to the ICT center where I met the guys there. They had to help me. I told them that my passion is to study leadership. So they told me that for me to do leadership I talked about leadership and the administration. So they said for me to study leadership, I have to enroll into the Faculty of Education, and which we have educational leadership. I said, okay, if it is so, I'll be very, very grateful. I think that is one of the most influential person, or one of the the worker that really helped me at the ICT center. The man was, I was very, very grateful that I met him, and he had to help me throughout the admission process.
Okay, that's great, Shuli. When we think about Faculty of Education, when you hear education, what comes to mind? When you hear that you're going to be studying a program in education, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Okay, when I hear anything about Faculty of Education or education, I know that it is what the first thing that comes to my mind is that anybody that will come out of the faculty will have to work in any educational institution or educational organization.
All right, that's great. So Kwanda, what was it for you? Any influential persons that actually influenced your experiences in the university, whether from the point of choosing programs or from the point of gaining support within the university, maybe even just for direction and guidance to offices that can support you? Was there anybody in your life who stood out at this period, pre-admission period?
Yes, doctor. When I was in the Faculty of Art, the coming of Faculty of Education in 2017, I was really thinking, because I had loved to follow education based on my PM career, which I started. I went to one office. I met one of my literature teacher, who was by name Dr. Awo Peter. And then I discussed with him. I told him I had loved to continue with education, anything that concerned teaching. And then he advised me that if I really feel passionate about education, I should go and re-register in Faculty of Education. And when I went up to the Faculty of Education, the first person I met was the Dean of Faculty of Education, whom I just met, and I greeted, like, just tell him that, and then I told him I wanted to ask about Faculty of Education, and I discussed with him, and that was in the person of Professor Michael Ntui. I discussed with him, and he really orientated me on what I should do. So when I explained to him, he told me I should take educational leadership or educational foundation. When I took educational foundation, we were later on transferred to educational leadership because educational foundation was operational only at the master level.
Okay, that's great. So for Kwanda, it was a teacher. For James, it was a friend and a teacher as well, or a support system as well. What is it for you? Please share your voices in the chat. And as we go on, we are going to be sharing some of the videos of students who have shared their voices and their opinions about how we can make higher education, the best higher education in Cameroon, the best in the world. This is possible, right? Surely, do you think this is possible?
Very, very possible. Very,
All
very
right,
possible.
hold on that thought there for a moment. Let me hear about your current experiences in the university. So you had all of these challenges coming into the university. Now you're here. I know James has been there for 3 years now, about 3 years now, just going through the final year. And Kwanda is already in his master's program. It'll be interesting to hear, what are your experiences with the university? You had expectations, you had plans, you had dreams about what you were going to see. What is it now? If you were to do a little evaluation, how will you say these expectations have been made?
Okay, thank you very much.
Maybe you could start. Sorry.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Well, my expectation from the university was, the first thing was to always be distinguished, not being distinguished out with things that could identify me as an arrogant student. I wanted to be an exemplary student among my peers. And I took that as a challenge that I will always make myself friendly to my lecturer, even though when I started with it, it was difficult because I thought some of them were rather wicked, I term it. But when I lived with them for a year, I understood their own way. And in fact, the university, if I am to term or to grade it, my expectation from the university was, if I'm to grade it, if it is made as a success, I can put it 80% success, because whatsoever thing I want to learn within the university milieu, the facilities are there. And in fact, the university is a place to be. Even when I enrolled into the Faculty of Education, my main objective was to have a degree and leave. But I find myself going ahead. That shows how much I feel at home in the University of Bamenda. Thank you.
Okay, great. Great. The university is a place to be. James, what do you think? What has been your experience so far? It's final year. It's been 3 long years on campus every day. Tell me about it.
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor. I have a lot of experience as long as I got admission. Throughout my first year, I must appreciate the faculty. Faculty of Education is really newborn, as I can term it. They are really trying, but we still need more effort, especially in the University of Bamenda. I must appreciate all the lecturers. I must appreciate all the administrators, because they are doing their utmost best. And one of my challenge that when I came into the university, I heard of student support, like the normal 50K that they usually give. I heard of the PB that they usually give to students. But when I look at the time that they share these things to students, it is not really good. It is not really good. Sharing of PB to students, I think it should be done at the first year so that it can help students do their assignment, so that it can help students in their studies and all the like. And the 50K, at times, they give it only at the level of the final year, which I think it is very important if they give it to students second year and third year, or why not first year, so that it will help them in their school activities. Imagine you just graduated from the university and you are coming back again to take 50K. What will it be of help to you? So those are some of the challenges that I'm currently facing. And not only that, as the student leader presently, we have a lot of difficulties. Managing the students is not really easy. In the Faculty of Education, even offices, to locate them is not easy. The offices are not enough. You see all the head of department, they are choked up in one office. You see the dean, at least for us, the dean has his office, but others, it's not really encouraging. And in fact, much is needed. We require much from them. And I think through analyzing stuff like this, it will help us a lot. It will help us a lot. Thank you very much, Doctor.
All right, great. For those who are joining us out of Cameroon, out of the experiences of public universities in Cameroon, particularly, what James was referring to there as PB is actually a grand gesture that was made by the president to provide university students with laptops. And those laptops were PB. Were tied to PB, so he's calling it PB. So that's what it was. And then he equally talked about 50K. 50K is 50,000 francs mini scholarship that was equally given by the president to support students. But let's have that clear for the audience. How much fees do we pay in the University of Bamenda? Valentine, how much do you pay as tuition fee?
Okay, talking about the fees in the University of Bamenda, we have 50,000 tuition, we have 10,000 caution. If you are a new student, you have 5,000 for medicals, and if you are an old student, you have 3,000 for medicals, and then 3,700 for insurance. And there are some special programs in the University of Bamenda that are being paid. They are called paid programs, like Faculty of Education. Master program for us is a paid program. So we have aside 500,000 before the normal university tuition, caution, insurance, and medicals. And in other schools, they have those special programs too in the University of Bamenda. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. So 50,000 francs and that tuition fee for what we call non-professional programs, or basically standard programs. However, the fees could go as high as 500,000 plus for other programs referred to as paid programs. This is not just for the University of Bamenda, equally for all state or public universities in Cameroon. And interestingly, as James did mention a while ago, these 50,000 francs is given back to the student as some form of scholarship. So one will expect that we do not have financial challenges. Usually, am I right? Students You're a student leader, you deal with students. Do they bring issues to you about financial challenges, about financing their education, with all of this support that government gives them?
Yes,
If you want to
Doctor. Currently, I receive a lot of complaints about financing education at the level of the students. At times, they come to me and really complain, and it's really a burden. Some of them they don't have. Some of them they don't have. Some of them they are sponsoring themselves. They are trying to make a living. They are trying to forge ahead with finance, as long as financing education is concerned. And the time usually given to us in the University of Bamenda for fee payment, cost registration, at times they block the platform. And when they block the platform, student comes along and complain.
Wow, great. Volatile, have you had such experiences? Have students come up to complain about financing their education? Even though we know that that's like I don't have the actual exchange rate, but I think that's like $87 or so. So the students still come up to you to talk about challenges they are facing as a result of financing their education. Valentine.
Yes, doctor. Yes, like finance has always been a problem of most of the students, not because the money is not there. Most of us, at time when they give enough time for payment of fees, some use the money wrongly, and when they give a time limit, they will have to respect it. Coupled with the issue of uh, students who are on campus and some are just out to distract others. The way I see students behave, not all of them come here to study or within the university milieu. Some are there just to distract others from doing the right thing. I have, when I was a student leader, when I was a school president in the Faculty of Education, I had a good number who came to me with complaints about being unable to pay their fees at the end. It exceeded the deadline. When I tried to solve this problem and within my own discussion with the students, good number of them dealt away with their money. They used the money poorly. So I first of all appreciate the the government for the subsidization of the education to the level that I think each and everyone can afford at the level of the university. Honestly, finance has been a problem with us and a good number of students. But when you are trying to compare what other schools are paying, you see that we are really feeling free. We are really schooling for as a gift. So it has been a problem to us because some of us are not taking it serious. But I think if we take it that everything has been done for us to study and we try to put in effort, it will be nothing. In Bambili, I think the cost of living and the house rent is at times it quadruple the amount of money we pay in school. But you find a student who will come and pay the house rent to completion and then care less about the school fees. So even when it is time, when I look at the time that they give out the presidential grant to students, some take it for drinking, which is what they need cautioning about that. But I was one of the advocates that if they could give this grant within the earlier months of the academic, it will help a good number of students to use it to repay their fees. But some are just misusing it for what I can't really say. But finance has been a problem, even though to the DOS level, it is still a problem in Cameroon and in Africa as a whole. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. If we must move ahead, then we must understand where we are. We must understand in order to predict what will be, and we need to evaluate what has happened. And so, being here today talking to student leaders as they represent their experiences, their challenges, and the broader experiences and challenges of the student folk is a very important way of moving higher education in Cameroon forward. We are still talking about finances, and as I heard Valentine mention, we have these differences. We have standard programs paying 50,000 francs plus, but just up to about 55,000 francs. And then we have what we call the paid programs, paying 600,000 francs right up to 1 million. And one will be wondering, what is the main difference between these programs? What are the differences in terms of outcomes? Shuli, any thought on this one?
Yes, Doctor. One of the advantages is that those paying, let me say, 500,000 for masters, especially in Faculty of Education, I think it is not biased because it is a professional program, and they usually term it professional program in academy, which means that with that program, they can still do their PhD, academic PhD or professional PhD still in the university. Normally, when you get a master's, a professional master out there, you need to come and do 1 year in the faculty before you do PhD. But with this one, the amount you pay and do your master's, a professional master's, it will still permit you to do PhD, which is very, very important.
Okay, that's great. So it allows you to continue your education. For Shule James, that's it. That's the big difference he sees between standard programs and professional programs. Valentine, Ellie, do you have a contrary view, or do you support this view?
Yes, I support the view. Honestly, as a student, I cannot really differentiate the paid program in the University of Bamenda and that of standard program because I've just enrolled into the paid program, and I don't feel bad about it. What makes me feel my feelings about it is just so normal based on my let me say my point of view is I feel happy, contented with it because that is what I am passionate to study. And whatsoever thing I'm taught of, it makes me feel very happy because I always see myself different from other students. And I believe that education, Faculty of Education is the mother school of the University of Bamenda. As in our leadership, and what we always encourage into the Faculty of Education, we are always trying to make sure that Faculty of Education students are distinguished from other students in their behavior, character-wise, and everything they do on campus. So I don't feel bad about it. I am very happy, and it helped me because with my view and my thought about it, I take my study serious. I don't care if somebody who is paying a lesser amount, we are studying the same thing. What I care about is what I gain. Thank you.
Wow. So what I hear very strongly here is that the amount will not matter as long as we get the expected outcomes. The audience is equally wondering, someone is asking from the audience, will fees increase over time? What are the plans for fee increases? You know, when you consider standard and professional programs, will everybody in the future, do you think that people will be moving to the side of professional or paid programs? Shuli, when you look at things, what do you think? In the University of Buea, where I am, we are increasingly having more paid programs coming up. What is your experience from that end, James? Do you have many more paid programs, and are students soliciting for these programs?
My current experience is that concerning the paid program, in fact, is really, especially at the master level for students in the Faculty of Education, it's not easy. Our prayer is that let the fee reduce so that the number that they are leaving undergraduate should continue in masters, to do masters. Because when you look at master students in the Faculty of Education, the number is drastically reducing because of the fee. So our desire and our prayer is that as we are coming up, let the fee be reducing. I know they started very high because it is a young faculty. I still need to gain stamina, and it's not bad. But we wish that the fee should be reduced so that those that are living undergraduate should continue with the masters, because a lot of them finds it very difficult to pay the 500,000 and other normal fee. Thank you very much.
Well, great insight there. The purpose of this conversation is to be able to open up to research initiatives and innovations that can make higher education in Cameroon the best in the world. We think it's a possibility, and we think when you understand where the challenges are, what can be done, what the barriers are, then we can be able to make this a possibility. So I just want to indicate that these are very interesting issues that we may want to study further, understanding whether the decreased number of students who are moving through the educational levels, that's from undergraduate to master's to postgraduate levels, is as a result of the fee we are looking at. Thank you so much. And we continue to say, what do you think about financing higher education in Cameroon? What is your thought about the presidential grants, about the laptops that students are receiving, and generally the subsidies that are there for education? What is your thought on this? Drop it in the chat, and we'll be able to call this out to talk about this as we go ahead. But now let's look at university provision. But even before I move to university provision, I'm just going to take a comment and possibly a question from the audience. The question is whether these different degrees lead to employment opportunities. How much is entrepreneurship coming up in the curriculum? I think without rephrasing too much, we want to see whether the programs that the universities in Cameroon are hosting, I mean, drawing from your experiences in the University of Buea, these programs, whether paid programs or non-paid programs, are they leading to employment opportunities, different employment opportunities? How will you, what is it for you? What do you think, Wanda?
Talking about the paid program and the standard program of the university, is it leading to recruitment? We know very well that in our country, or in Africa in general, most of the country are facing the problem of unemployment. It isn't like there are possibility for recruitment that they are rejecting people and allowing the space for nothing. What I believe in now is, if you make it and you make it in a flying color, you will make it in recruitment. But if you take education as a place for entertainment where you go to come back and sleep without getting tired to the next day, you will not make it. So I think wherever you study is the passion you have for it. And I think you have a direction where you are going to. We have an adage saying that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a step. Go to school, being in the university, obtaining your certificate in the expected grade will give you a job. My present now, I feel like I have everything. Meanwhile, I'm not yet employed or I'm not yet having a job in the country. But if I stop school at this level and I open a school on my own, I can manage that school. Entrepreneurship is studied in the University of Bamenda. For example, this academic year, the whole of master program in Faculty of Education, that is Master 2, Year 2 students, we have been studying entrepreneurship from the beginning of the academic up to now. At times I wonder, is it just the 6 credit program we are studying this long? But what I always consult myself is the knowledge gain. Presently, I started the university. I never had time to open a small business by me. But as I've started with entrepreneurship, presently I have a business here. I have a business in the village that I have just started with little amount. And I believe that I'm being so pessimistic about what I've learned that I will not only be looking for a job or struggling to be recruited. I believe that in subsequent years, I will be recruiting others. So I am studying with a hope to be an employee, an employer, not an employee. Thank you.
Wow, wow, great entrepreneurial mindset there. But let me just push further. Do you think that there are certain programs that will land you the jobs, or so in other words, are some programs better than others? The audience wants to hear this. Valentine, do you think there are programs that are better than others?
Programs are not better than others, but your passion into the program makes it better than that of others in every sphere.
Okay,
Yes.
wow. So for Valentine, it's about the individual's aspirations, the individual's expectations, and their resilience, and all other abilities which they can bring into the educational platform. That's great. Usually, we're talking about entrepreneurship and talking about the outcomes. We are hosting the higher education aspirations project, and one of the strong things that students tell us about why higher education for them is that I want to be able to get a job. So what is it for you? Do you think that these programs are preparing you for employment opportunities, and whether entrepreneurship is coming up as a powerful tool or measure in our curriculum?
Thank you very much, Doctor. It's high time us, the student, we change our mentality from depending on recruitment from the government. It's high time we go to school to become job developers and not job seekers. I think in the Faculty of Education, I can, especially in my field, I can testify that they are really training us not only to seek job, but to be people who can recruit a source of employment to the nation. We know it is difficult for the government to recruit all the graduates from all state universities. It is very, very difficult, very, very difficult. And I think the main thing is that study well, master your program very well, be a professional in your field. And if they recruit you, good. If they don't recruit you, you develop your job. It is our cry that our curriculum should be tilted towards training job developers and not only job seekers. So it is very, very important. It is very, very important, even at the level of other faculties, that we start training people who are job developers and not only people who will seek for job. So that if we go into the society tomorrow and we discover that there's no job, we can start something. We can pick up from anywhere and move on. Thank you very much.
Well, dear audience, the student is at the center of educational provision. And it's important that we hear their voices. and not impose what we think should be for them. The tendency is we develop programs, academic programs, we develop support systems and practices, and we try to shape their experiences as if they are passive in the process. From what we are getting today, these students want to be active in the process of their education, and it's important to understand what they want. They don't want the government to give them these jobs, hand over these jobs. I think that as representatives of Cameroonian students, what we are hearing is that train them to develop jobs for themselves. But James, let me take on this one. But still, what do you think? Do you think that some programs are better than others? Will you say that?
Some programs, it depends on the student. If you embrace your program and you can make your program better than others, I don't think a program is better than others. It depends on your passion, what drives you to do the program, and whether you're succeeding in it. That is why we were talking about orientation. If you get good orientation and follow what you can do very well and perfectly, and you are pursuing it with all your heart, I think you will make that program better than the other program. Presently, in our contemporary society, what matters is your professionalism, how professional you are in your program. Even if it means you are following, you're just a counselor. We know we have many counselors. What will distinguish you from other counselors is your professionalism, the way you have mastered the skill, the way you are working. And I think you are the one to make your program different from other programs or more valuable from other programs.
Okay, great. So Valentine and James shift the responsibility from the government to the student. But this is what one of our audience thinks. We have a comment from the audience, and it says, I disagree. The government has done things here and there, but inequality is massive. Inequality is massive. Does the government really care about leveling playing field through education? What is your take about inequalities, Kwanda? Do you think that students from different socioeconomic backgrounds are treated the same in our universities? I know we already alluded to the point of finances, the differences in terms of programs and the amounts that come from it. But what do you think? Are there other inequalities that are there? Do we think that in terms of socioeconomic background, students are treated differently? Do we also think that there are opportunities that are more open to others, maybe even in terms of study programs? Like, you come from the Faculty of Education in the University of Buea, and there's been a lot of positive things that you have to say about the university. But you also, as student leaders, at the center of guiding students and also, communicating with students, having relationships with students at different levels. So will you say that there are some of these inequalities, and how do you think the government has done so far in closing the gap?
Kwanda,
yes.
Thank you, Doctor. Honestly, there have been a good level of inequality that exists among students. For example, it begins from the primary education. When you look at a school from, let me say, a school from in Bamenda town and a school in Mbisa from Bambalang, they don't have the same didactic materials. And
so
when you
Bambala is a rural area?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And Bamenda town is urban?
Yes. So when you two students coming from these two environment have different level of ideology, they have different level of reasoning, they have different levels of appearance. Imagine a student came in, I'm advising the student that you will register online, and the student begins to ask, what is online? The student begins to ask, I'm talking to a student that we have to register you online, and For you to register online, you need this document, you need this document. And the student begins to ask, are you going to use your phone? Are you sure you will make me to be admitted into the university? That already tells you that that student, based on the background, based on the school, the students study right up to the level of the university, is not as compared to the school with students who are coming from the urban area. So this inequality, even when they meet among themselves, makes some feel timid, makes some feel intimidated among themselves. I remember one time in my university here, we have to fight it, even from the university alumni seriously, that some students were snapping, they were moving around and snapping the dressing of other students and posting that, see the way a student of the university is dressing. These things are all imbalance made by the government. If the government could create a social justice in a way that they try to create equality. You see, in education, there is no equality. A school in Yaoundé with about 50 computers, and you go to Bambalang, they are talking about computer. A student, a child in the primary school, in the secondary school, have never seen a computer. These are the beginning of this inequality right up to the level of the university. There are students here who have come to the university, seen their mate with good Android phone. They struggle to purchase one, but they cannot even register or pay their fees using their phone. With their phones at hand, they still go by the roadside and pay 2,000, 5,000. This inequality is created by the government because right from the curriculum, it is not equated, or let me say equality is not understood there. They are not struggling to make sure that rural areas are balanced up with the urban areas. So this thing, it is very difficult to talk about it at the level of the university because it exists, it is almost innate now. But when we meet these students, we try to orientate them, we teach them how to use their phones, we just try to guide them on what they can do in merging into or associating with others. We advise them how they can behave, how they can do, how they can register their fees or register their courses online. It is very difficult. This inequality is existing from, let me say, from the base, begins from the base at the level of the primary school. Thank you, Doctor.
All right. Thank you, Kwanda. Kwanda says it is inherent, but more like structural inequality. It's part of the system. But as we go on, we will see about ways through which we can solve some of these challenges, some of these problems. And we also implore you to share your voices in the chat. James, inequalities. What do you think about this? Is the government doing anything? Kwanda has cited urban, rural realities that are there, and they bring about these inequalities. But what do you think? Do you have any other experiences of inequalities? And what do you think the government is doing to try to close the gap?
Okay, thank you very much. The issue of inequality is really the talk of the day, especially in higher education. I think I will always quote the example from my faculty of education. I think the tuition fee that we pay at master's level, it is not the same as the one in the University of Buea. Even differences in fees, even at the level of the university, inequality still exists. And not only that, there are still some programs that it is not easy for some students to really gain admission into those programs. We have professional programs like NAPI, we have Coltech, which is, they always launch an entrance examination, and many students find it very difficult to succeed, maybe because of their background, because of finance and all the like. I think if the government comes in and shape everything, state university is state university. The University of Buea should not be different from the University of Bamenda in terms of fee payment, tuition fee, and all the like. whatever advantages that the student in the University of Buea has, I think it should be the same in the University of Bamenda, and even why not the University of Yaoundé, University of Douala. I think we share the same right, the same, we have equal opportunities. So I think it is very important that they should balance everything for all state universities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, James. These are the kinds of conversations we want to have, even with university administrators who are amongst us right now. We want to employ them to have these kinds of discussions where we can begin to think about standardizing the practices within our institutions so that our students do not have a differential outcome because of their institution or because of where they are coming from. Thank you, James and Valentine, about this. Now, we've spoken a lot about what the government can do, what the institution can do, but I want to ask you a really direct question, and that's for your own experiences. How much role did your parents play in your university experience? For instance, particularly when it had to do with your admission, did they choose your programs? Did they influence the choice of program for you? James,
Okay.
sorry.
Thank you very much. I think concerning me in particular, I grew up with a lot of passion in leadership. And my parents, my family, they advised me to do science. And I told them that that's not my field. I want to be a leader. I want to be a leader. So I really hold on to that view, that ambition, that desire, and that is what has kept me up to date. If I was like, okay, let me listen to my family, let me listen to my father, to my mother, to my brothers, to my sister, and others, I would have not been in the Faculty of Education doing leadership and enjoying the leadership as I am doing. My parents, they tried to tell me what to do, but that was not what I was born to do, and I had to follow my passion. They did not influence my choice of career. I choose it myself, and that's why I'm working for it. Thank you very much.
Okay, so did you at any point do subjects in the sciences? What did you do at the advanced level, James? What subjects?
Okay, at the advanced level, I did A5, which has philosophy, which has literature, which has English language and the history. So those are the subjects.
So if you did, sorry to jump in there. So if you did, I did S3, biochem maths, so biology, chemistry, mathematics. So you think if you did biology, chemistry, mathematics, you wouldn't have been able to get into the leadership program? Do you think so?
Okay. If you did, I think it is very, very possible. It is very, very possible. But somebody with art-oriented background will dominate. Yeah, will have an upper hand in the field. But science students, they can do it and they can succeed in it. In fact, Faculty of Education is for everybody, both science, art, commercial, and all the like, as long as you can come in there. We have a lot of programs that entertains, in fact, everybody. Yeah, science-oriented programs, we have them. We have STEAM. We have a lot of them that can take them. So if you did science, you can still come to leadership and you lead well. So leadership does not only imply in art domain. You can still lead in the hospital. You can still lead in any, in fact, leadership is everywhere. So if you did science, you can still cope with leadership.
Okay, great. I was just going to say it'll be interesting to see whether students' performance differ, in leadership programs or maybe other social science programs or education programs differ in terms of their backgrounds, whether they were art students or science students. Okay, Valentine, what is it for you as far back as you can remember? What did your parents want you to be?
Well, doctor, my parents were just so passionate I should be a teacher. Because
Okay.
from my childhood, we used to make children play because we grew up in the village and I was fond of visiting my uncles in the town indoor. And there I knew a small pidgin. So I will always teach my friends, my brothers, my cousins. I'll always gather them and I'm teaching them that this is what they say in English. So they always call me the teacher in the house. And that already gave me that directive. And whatsoever thing I was doing, they were just so happy that, and my mom in particular was always calling me my teacher. And that was, it built me towards what I'm doing up to today. And I still believe that leadership, which is by influence, is teaching. And everything I'm doing now is theater toward teaching because I believe that I will be a role model to many because even at this point, I think of great teachers during my day that I used to think of them. When I think of them, I feel motivated. And I always ask myself, who else will ever think of me as I'm thinking about these people? And that encourages me to push further into education, which is universal in life. Thank you, Doctor.
Wow, the teacher in the house. I'm going to throw this to the audience. Who were you in the house? Just drop it in the chat. And as we go ahead, I was the medical doctor in the house. I don't tell you what I became, but I was a medical doctor. Anyway, that's great. And again, just comments from the audience. It's so powerful. There is a this is a power being a respected teacher. So there is some kind of power that goes with teaching, and the older generations embrace this. I hope that we too do the same. And in our aspirations project, in our aspirations survey, we want to understand whether these different disciplines are shaping the future for our students. Is one of the areas that we will tackle. We are just going into the last lap of this conversation, and that is talking about university provisions. We want to talk about this in comparison to other countries, based on your experiences, based on the information, your interaction even with the news and with maybe peers and colleagues out of Cameroon. In terms of university provisions, infrastructure, or broadly material resources, human resources, physical resources, how will you say it is? Is it good enough? Are universities doing well? James, what do you think?
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor. Concerning infrastructure, I think the government has done a lot and they still need to do a lot, especially in the University of Bamenda. It is not easy. It is not easy. At times, you see students running up and down just to get a hall, to sit in and attend lecture. It is not easy, especially in the University of Bamenda. And I think they've been doing that. A lot of construction is going on within the university. I think that is a good move. And not only that, I will always quote some example from my faculty. Just the fact that HODs and lecturers, at times they are choked up in one office. It is not really good. It is not really good. And I think with time, as long as development is going on, they will see into that. They will see into that. And concerning students, classroom, I've talked about that. Classrooms are very limited. The government has really tried its best to bring in enough lecturers that are handling the various courses in the faculty, and I really appreciate that. One of the things I want to address is when you look at universities in Cameroon in particular, and maybe compare it with other universities in the world, a majority of the young people prefer that of other countries, maybe like in Europe, maybe like other African countries like Nigeria, like Ghana. They prefer that because through my investigation, I discovered that the various universities in Cameroon as a whole, they have really proven to us, the government has really proven to us that they doubt their output. That means the output that they produce, they doubt it. Because my investigation has proven that majority of the lecturers that are teaching in these universities, majority of them studied out of the country. Majority of them, some studied in Nigeria, some studied in America, in fact, majority of them. And I doubt, where are the graduate, the PhD people that we are graduating? In fact, where are they? Where are they? We have a PhD program running all over the university, all over the universities in Cameroon. My question is, where are these people? Where are they? And one of my main problem about universities in Cameroon is that they train people, they train students, and they pick out intelligent ones. At times during graduation, we will hear that the University of Buea is graduating 11,000, is graduating this, and this student has the best student. In fact, the best student. When you look at the best student, they just offer some gift, some money, and at times the student gain scholarship abroad. Okay, we are sending our own good students, our own intellectuals, we are sending them out who will develop our own country. That is one of my difficulties that I'm facing right now, and it's really a call for concern. Thank you very much.
James, if you looked into my camera, you see me smile all the way because you're just touching the points, the things that worry me as well. And I'm surprised to hear that it worries the students too, and that they can also see. And this is the interesting thing about having a conversation. Many times we think that these worries stay with us, but right down to even the last level of the educational ladder, it has been felt. And thank you so much for bringing up the points of mobility. A lot of expertise are moving out of the country while we are importing a lot of expertise here. So it feels like, well, we'll have to find where we draw the line. So James touches on the aspects of mobility of expatriates, and equally important a lot, which I want to believe is very costly. Valentine, any other thoughts about when you compare university provisions with other countries? Do you have any suggestion from that end? Any thought?
Yes, Doctor. When you try to compare the Cameroon State University with other countries' state universities, I will take, for instance, South Korea. You see that in the university, there are study centers like that is a Wi-Fi room where students can enter, put on their devices, and browse well for studies. But ours here is limited at the level of the library. You only get to the library before you can, even at the level of the library, they can only give you links or websites where you can get books. But we don't have facilities that a place where Wi-Fi areas, Wi-Fi, where you can go and browse and get material for your studies. Another thing is the infrastructure is not inclusive enough. We need, I think, based on what we got from the SIP programs and the education for all, I think the school, they talk of inclusion, but when you look around the state universities in Cameroon, it is not inclusive enough. You see upstairs with staircases, it is already limiting some group of people. You see the campus roughly constructed or roughly demarcated. It is already limiting some people. And then another thing is, you find some courses, if you find a particular lecturer teaching you about 4 courses, that already tells you that it's like what you are learning is not equitable enough, because when you find a lecturer who come and maybe teach you just 1 course, you feel that even the way they talk, those lecturers who are coming like visiting lecturers, their specialties in particular field, the way they talk, you feel in them. But when you see lecturers who are teaching almost everything in a faculty, in a school, it becomes very funny. At times, they just ask people to do assignment and pass. And when you do, you see a mark that even at times we do assignment, when we are passing, you see the way the lecturers just look and nod the head. You too, you feel happy. Another thing about this, comparing the education of Cameroon, the higher education of Cameroon with other countries, is also based on this issue of classrooms. You see, I will quote an example in the University of Bamenda. Even though it is one of the youngest university in the country, they are doing everything to see that they provide classroom for students to learn. It is really a serious problem. And offices, student comes into a school, at times for you to get to another office, you trek for about 300 to 500 meters. And then it is just for you to pass a document or to get a form there and come back to another office. It is stressful. Our school itself is really a problem for us to study. I don't know whether we are there to study the problem or to study the curriculum that is set for us. So I believe that if the state, or if things are done in a way that the school is fully inclusive and the provision of classrooms, didactic materials, it will really help the student a lot. Because even in this university here, when they talk of the library, when you go to the library, at times when you come in, it is just one person who is inside. And at times that person has been isolated for a longer time and is tired. When you come, the person stretches the body. It already psychologically, it poses a problem into your mind. Am I not disturbing this person? But if they make this thing in a way that I think that if I come there, I will have free internet to even study, to browse, you will find students there. And when you meet some who are seated and they are seriously studying, it will also move you to study harder. Classroom, you are to attend a class at a certain building, and you have to, out of that class, you have to rush again about 3 meters to go into the next class, into the next building for a class. And before you get into that class, you are stressed up. Within the first 30 minutes, which is the beginning of the class, you are psychologically balancing. And as you are getting balanced, the class is gone. For you to pick from the beginning, it is a problem. So you find that this issue that they post a class up and the next class begins down, and there is no time spacing between the 2 periods. It is a problem too. So if I'm to compare, I believe that, well, with most of the university out there, you see that even in terms of studies, there are some students, if they notice that you are the best in the school and they give you a scholarship to study, maybe they tell you that your master program is free, or you study the first year master program free and continue the second year. You are motivated. And many who are unable to do it are motivated to study. The level of the subvention the school give to the student. Imagine a situation where, like last year, my school offered a training seminar on research. And at the end of the research, I myself was called the first student to be given an award. Presently now, I believe that if a student asks me something on research and I don't answer and I don't help that student to make it, it means that reward I took is for nothing. That motivates me. So little moves, little motivation on campus makes the student giant enough to study further. And I wish that if we are talking much more on the comparing the university, I cannot really say much about it since I've never been out of the country, but based on what I try to read and what I observe or listening from out of other countries, like James said, you find almost all the lecturers coming from a different school, coming out of Cameroon. It's like the education of Cameroon is nothing. And I myself have seen that because in my own university here, for the construction of an amphitheater, we have good students in NSET who are even moving around and constructing tower in Bambili. I will tell you that the tower constructed at 3 Corner Bambili is constructed by NSET students, and one being my neighbor, next door neighbor. But he graduated from the University of Buea without molding a block. And those are students the school could exploit to help them construct. You have students who are doing woodwork engineering. They are leaving the school with dilapidated decks, of which they could be taken to move around to help arrange those benches. But these things are neglected. I will also end up by asking the same question James asked. Is what we are producing not good enough for us to consume in the higher education in Cameroon? Why are we not able to exploit our students? Thank you.
I'll add my voice to it. Are the products of higher education in Cameroon not good enough? I'll leave that to the audience to answer. Higher education in Cameroon has its highs and lows, as we've heard from our students today. The positives are there. There are lots of subsidies that are given to us. There are lots of struggles being made independently by institutions to make things better, but the challenges persist. Mobility rates of graduates is very high. Entrepreneurship is very low. Entrepreneurial building and using, exploiting the skills that the students have within the institutions is very low. And also, I think, and Kwanda also, and James as well, mentioned the fact of infrastructure, and that the infrastructure is not good enough. And Kwanda said it's even non-inclusive, it's exclusive, And we also have the products of higher education. These lecturers who have to give back. Why are they not Cameroonians? It's a great thing we are hearing from there. The big question that is is how then can we make university education in Cameroon the best in the world? We had from the audience, we will take a comment and then we'll play a voice note or some voice notes from students about how we can make university education in the world, university education in Cameroon, the best in the world. So Franklin from the audience reminds us that undergraduate at Makerere University, he says it will literally run across campus for the next class, which will be in like 40 minutes. So it means you have to move like 40 minutes to the next class on campus. That's Makerere in Uganda. Interesting, right? Because I think Kwanda, they talk about how many meters again? Or how many kilometers to the next classroom?
500.
Okay, if we were to convert that to minutes, what will it be? So that we try to see whether we are ahead of Makerere or we are just right behind them. If we were to convert to minutes, how many minutes will it take for you to move from one class to the next in the University of Buea?
Yes, I think it should be 10 to 15 minutes, or yes, 10 to 15 minutes.
Oh, okay. So Franklin, you hear that? That's very interesting. Please share your experiences about your university. We want to get these experiences and know how we can broaden provisions to make student experiences better. So let's take on a response from one of our participants. We sent out the opportunity to share video clips or to share audio notes about the theme, making higher education, university education in Cameroon the best in the world. And remember, you still have the opportunity to do that. So let's watch our screen.
From the pre-colonial to the colonial, during the 20th century, we understand that education has evolved from the 20th century to the 21st century. This is to prove that the aspirations of Cameroonians and students are high, and the goals being set are high. But as such, these goals cannot be met due to some lackings, due to some gaps, due to some missing link. The fact that the fact that the state have provided so many higher institutions in combinations with the private institutions that have been put in place by individuals and corporations, but much is still being lacking in the field of practicals, in the field of technical know-how. We want to suggest that the states or individuals should put in place more research centers so that students will acquire skills that will give them the chance and the ability to become self-employed after graduation, upon graduations, and upon leaving the higher institutions, and not solely depending on the state for employment. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. That is from one of our participants there. We should not depend on the government, on the state entirely for employment. I mean, that's great. Yes, the government is doing all that it can. We now have 11 state universities, 3 more created, and a host of private universities equally that are out there. So yes, the country is making great strides, but there is much more to be done. But I will just ask this final question. In just one sentence, Kwanda, how can we make universities in Cameroon the best in the world?
Making the state university in Cameroon the best in the world is, first of all, let the curriculum reflect the need of the country.
Thank you. James, how can we make university in Cameroon the best in the world? One concluding sentence, please.
First, let us match theories with practice, and then let us monitor the teaching and the learning process.
Great. Wow. Thank you so much. This conversation is still ongoing. We are open. We are using so many channels to talk about this issue. And one of it is the survey, which the Higher Education Aspirations survey, which has been ongoing for about a month now, is basically for undergraduate students in universities in Cameroon. And on it, they are sharing their experiences about admission, about student support, and a host of other things. You have the link there in the chat box. Look at it, share it with other mates and colleagues, and let it be widespread so that our students can feel and have their voices heard. It was a wonderful time that we've had with you, and we thank you so much for joining us today on the Leaders of Africa Present. Remember to visit leadersofafrica.org/aspirations to complete the survey and to have your say. We have indicated that the link is below, and also the developments of the survey is shared. We'll be sharing it on the Leaders of Africa platform, as well as on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Facebook, and Instagram, and all great content that Leaders of Africa is equally putting out there. We have that available, so you can always check that there. We look forward to your engagement, and thank you for a wonderful conversation today. Thank you, James. Thank you, Valentine. Thank you, dear audience. Take care, and bye-bye.